Hey all, Derek from Distributed DBA here. Normally I talk about database administration, but today I want to talk about something different. I want to talk about being distributed. No, that's not the databases being distributed around the world, but about the people. As the initial shock of COVID dies, a permanent crater has been left on the surface of many companies. So let's talk about how companies are going to need to enable a remote-first mindset. Let's be honest, COVID sucks. People's lives have been turned upside down. People's lives have been devastated. Some people have lost their lives in this pandemic. All industries have been affected. Many businesses in these industries have had to close their doors forever, and the employees that they hired are no longer able to work there. I will say some industries were harder hit than others. Truckers, restaurant workers, retail workers, first responders, and countless other professions were not quote-unquote lucky. This video isn't really for them though. This video is for the businesses and the industries that have been lucky enough to enable remote workforce and adapt that way. And while it may not have been business as usual, you can't really classify it as devastating either. I'd also say that in these companies, in these industries like the tech industry, remote work has been inevitable for a very long time. Executives have known about remote work and they've ran away from it. They've treated remote work as anathema, as their worst nightmare. And now that nightmare may just be coming true. I've been working remotely since about 2006. I can anecdotally attest that there are tons of benefits to working remotely, and it's to the both sides of the employee-employer relationship. For the employee, you get the benefit of working where you want to, not necessarily spending a whole chunk of your time commuting, working when you want to. Employers get the benefit of a wider talent pool, maybe even a more diverse one by going more global. And let's not forget that studies have shown that working remotely can increase productivity of their employees. It's 100% true that working remotely is not for everyone. I definitely have friends who have been forced to work remotely, and while they are happy that they were able to do that through this pandemic, they can't wait to get back to the office. But some of the excuses that executives give for being against remote work, such as the energy one might get from in-person collaboration, or how difficult it is to build a remote culture, these are really accurate drawbacks to remote work. Some people do thrive on being around other people and get energy from other people physically in the same area as them. And it definitely is harder to build a remote culture, but not impossible. It takes more intentionality and perhaps a different communication style, but really good executives and leaders have already been figuring this stuff out anyway. Most people don't do well with tons of meetings, and there are some people who do get drained by being around other people all day. So the point is not that companies have to enforce one way of working, whether you are in the office or you allow remote workers, but to allow that flexibility to your workforce, to enable your talent to say what works best for them. When I first started working remotely back in 2006, it took me about 6 months to adjust. Now, people this year did not have 6 months to adjust. They were thrown into it and it was sink or swim time, right? But part of the reason that it took me so long to adjust back then was the lack of tools. We didn't have Slack, we didn't have Google Meet, we didn't have MS Teams, whatever collaboration tool. And then we didn't have any sort of tooling for managing projects to remote workers. So the tooling was one thing, but it wasn't just that. Probably the main reason that it took so long for me to adjust was that I was the only person in the company who was working remotely. And so to a company full of office workers and me being the only person not in the office, then it was very easy for their communication to be geared toward those people in the office. And so that left me feeling very disconnected. So the message I would say to companies who want to be successful in enabling a remote work field is to make sure that they're enabling remote first concept, which basically means you have to adjust your communication style and your culture building as if everybody was remote, even if you have people working in offices and getting together physically in certain locations. This will really enable your team to feel connected no matter where they're at or when they're at. COVID has taught us many things. Among them, that remote work can work. And in some areas, it's better than before. The tooling for remote work has been in place for a while. The pandemic has made it get even better, and it's going to continue to get better. But this goes beyond tooling. Many companies have accepted that they will need to offer the flexibility to their employees to work wherever and how they want to. But to be successful after COVID goes away, they will need to stop making excuses and enable a remote-first mindset so that their employees can continue to feel connected no matter where they are, no matter how distributed they are, perhaps even including Mars eventually.